All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's good to see you all, or have you all back here. It has been a wonderful week for the weather in Toronto, and I am delighted to announce that my condo building is switching over to air conditioning on Tuesday, and I am fucking ecstatic because I have not been sleeping well because the insulation around the HVAC is not super great and the heating has still been on, so I have been dying. But I will soon not be dying, and I will get to set my air conditioning to like 62 degrees Fahrenheit, and I will be in heaven. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, K-libra. How are you doing, K-libra?
I wish I could sleep better. Again.
Yeah.
But you sound happy. You can hear the smile in your voice about the air conditioning.
Yeah, I'm fucking delighted because I will get to return to my frozen climb as I like it in here. The snow leopard in me really loves being around the cold and having that nice chilly air to lull me to sleep. So,
yeah, well, good, because it's nice to be able to cuddle up with a blanket or something like that. It's usually the way that I like to sleep. I can't relate to people who sleep with just the thin sheets.
Yeah, I always need like a big comfy blanket on top of me to fall asleep. And one thing that never lulls me to sleep is the warm support that our patrons give us. You know, it's really wonderful to have so many people who continue to support us on a monthly basis, and really helps us keep us going, especially, when things are kind of hectic and whatnot. I know we didn't put out an episode last week because we just weren't up to the task, and we had a really nice warm support from our patrons, so a big thank you to them. Again, that's why we keep doing what we keep doing, and I really appreciate each and every person, no matter how big or small, they're chipping in money to us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always greatly appreciated. The understanding is appreciated. I mean, again, something that we wanted to do because we cared enough about it, and everything that people decide to give us is a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think we do a little bit of community building, and I'm excited because we have a good friend who is a community builder unto himself joining us today. Fore, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I'm terrible at introductions. You've seen me do it so often at the TF meet and greet. But I'm Fore. I guess full name ForeBucks. Because I've been a deer for the last 5 years, but I feel a lot of people still know me by my old name of ForePaws with a Z. I've just been around in the community for a long time, since I was a teenager, and I guess I've commissioned a lot of art. And
I think that would be an understatement.
I have been told I have a big, large capacity to understate, but yes, I do commission a lot of art, and I guess, it's been an honor to be your co-host for the TF meet and greets at a number of North American cons, and it's honor to be here. Thank you for asking me to be
absolutely,
here
and
today.
it's good to have you back on, technically, because I know you joined us for that big, loud conversation we had in a bubble tea place. So it's really good to have you back.
Yeah, it was good times.
Awesome. Well, I have really enjoyed getting to do the meet and greets with you, and that was kind of where I wanted to start our conversation today, because we talk a lot on this podcast about community building and engendering a sense of connection within the transformation community. And I think the TF meet and greets is really a great example of that exercise. And I know that, I obviously have some background on this, but I'd like to cede the floor a little bit to hear from you as to how the TF meet and greets kind of started and where the format of it kind of came from. Because I know a lot of that was actually inspired from your own experiences with other meet and greets as well at other conventions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Certainly, I guess like I have to start all the way back. I actually didn't go to my first convention until like 2018. And, oh yeah, you did as well, yeah. And I just remember just kind of sort of being a little bit nervous, kind of wondering, you know, like what are ways to meet other people who are into TF. And my first convention was really like Further Confusion, 2018. There was kind of like a little bit of a meet and greet. It was kind of like informal in the zoo area. But I think like the biggest one that kind of like hit me was MFF 2018's meet and greet, where for the first time I saw this large room full of people that are passionate or interested about TF, all very interested in kind of having a conversation and meeting each other. And I do remember like that one was a tough one particularly, and I have my heart and my hat goes off to the organizers of that one, where I think that the kind of like the way that it was structured was really good if you had like a smaller number of people, where it's just like, hey, you know, grab the microphone, talk a little bit about what's your favorite kind of TF, what got you into TF, and, you know, your favorite one, and then move on. And so, you know, honestly, that's pretty great. It just didn't work as much when you had over 100 people in the room. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit off, but was it like 100
it was over
people
capacity.
or so?
Yeah, I remember because that was the first one I had ever been to, and it was over capacity. I think the room was supposed to have 100 in it, or like that's what it was like capacity wise for. And I think it actually ended up hitting like 125 because there were people who also crammed in, and then people who didn't actually make it into the actual room itself. So it was bustling in there.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, you know, again, hats off to Lycanos. I can't remember what his co-host was, what his name was, or their name was, I should say. But, you know, that was really tough. And so I kind of like walked away from that, and I was just like, wow, you know, I wonder if there's other ways to kind of have meet and greets. And at that same year for MFF, I ended up going to the STEM Furs meet and greet because, you know, I'm all big on science and whatnot, and since that was my, you know, first really big con, I was just like, well, you know, like maybe I can meet other people that have similar job or kind of like, you know, academic interests that I do. And what I noticed was they had this format, which was basically focused on splitting people into groups based on disciplines. So it's just like, hey, here's we're all in a big circle. We're now going to split up folks that are veterinarians, folks that are, you know, doctors and nurses, folks that are, you know, interested in basic science. And I ended up with like a group of folks, and I had a really good conversation, really short, but it was kind of a nice opportunity to meet people inside of the same kind of sphere as I am, and to realize, you know, I'm not the only person kind of like broaching certain topics in my work and research. And so kind of like coming away from that, I was just like, wow, this is really awesome. And, you know, long path kind of getting there. But eventually you and I decided to team up and, you know, flesh out that a little bit, make it more TF-centric. And then we just went for it and kind of like, we've made something that I think is really, really great.
I absolutely agree. And, you know, I think one thing that really added on to the kind of impetus for us to do it together was, you know, we both went to Vernal Equinox in 2019 afterwards. And there was also kind of a mismatch between like the format and the number of people who were there. And then I also went to Anthrocon that year, and there was again a similar mismatch. So I think that kind of cultivated in us a sense of like, you know, especially given you had this experience that went so well, it was like, maybe we can do this better. And I think the fact that we did end up getting to test run it once before the Panini kind of put all the conventions to a halt was really good because it helped us also work out the kinks getting to do it at MFF in 2019. And, you know, the room wasn't necessarily the best set up, but we really got to make it work. And I just remember that it felt very different from any of the other meet and greets that I had at least been to at any of the other conventions. And getting to kind of see the idea that you had and helping to like put it into action, I think helped a lot. And that also then helped to continue to improve it and iterate it as time has gone on. I know that obviously we have gotten to do it together at MFF pretty much every year since, and then we've also done it at Fernal, and then sometimes I've done it at Anthrocon, and then you've done it at like BLFC and other conventions. And, you know, all throughout the way, there's been a lot of really good feedback as well from people who have come and have been like, hey, you know, I really like this. Have you guys considered X, Y, or Z? Because, and for anyone who hasn't been to them before, to be clear, we will try to structure, we'll try to have like tables around the room, and then we'll have specific topics that we've brought kind of in advance. So be it like, you know, barnyard creatures or were creatures or inanimate or like TFs triggered by magic or science, and having those as individual kind of placards around the room, and also allowing people to come up and create their own placards if they want to have their own group that they want to kind of have a conversation within. And I think that one of the really heartening things to me, at least, has been that people have seen that new approach, given us good feedback, and then we've been able to kind of iterate over time. And they've also really grown. You know, we were just talking, obviously, about that first one where there were like 125 people in the room, but I mean, at this point, we've gotten like ballroom-sized areas at points because they're like, we know at least 200 people are going to come to this, which, you know, sometimes I think of that that Meowth gif of like, wow, I have a lot of people to disappoint because there's so many people there. But I think we generally tend to have a decent time wrangling everyone for the first little bit, introducing things, and then letting everyone off the leash, as it were, at the dog park so they can, you know, chat with each other.
Absolutely. And I think that that's like something that I've like, it is something that can be tiring, you know, like having to, like when you mentioned getting everybody all together, get everything started, it takes a good little bit of energy, especially if, in your case, it's unlucky enough to be Sunday morning, and you're just like barely waking up, and you're just like, great, I've got to get everybody going.
That was brutal. That was Anthrocon, not this past year, but the year before, I think. And yeah, or no, it was last year actually, I think. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, 2024.
Yeah,
I was there for that one.
And that was an interesting meet and greet, but I made it work somehow.
You made it work. And it's funny because like it was kind of nice to not be the co-host for once, because, you know, like I got to kind of socialize a little bit more and kind of see the format working without having to kind of like be there to direct it. And it the fact that you can help people make connections, the fact that you can help people to kind of, you know, especially if they're new to a con, to be able to meet other people, to kind of like find other groups to hang out with. The fact that, you know, we've helped to create an environment like that makes it worth doing, no matter how tiring it ends up being.
Absolutely agree. And it's interesting because obviously Libra, you know, I know that you've gotten to kind of experience them at both FE and MFF, and I was curious to hear a little bit about what your first experience at them was, because I know obviously you were kind of just coming into this new format for the first time, I think in like FE of like 2022.
Yeah, I never seen anything like. Well, I haven't been to anything like that before, obviously, and it was interesting to know that somebody was actually trying to get people to meet up and talk about the stuff in person. It was a pretty good format, I thought, and I don't know. I really didn't think about any way to improve it, but really it was the way that the opportunity was structured for people that I found most interesting, and I think it was a pretty good way that you guys went about it. Since, you know, if you want to be there to talk to people, you can. And nobody has to feel pigeonholed into any particular thing, especially since the cool thing is nobody has to stick with a topic if they don't want to, and people are encouraged to roam and wander which I think is also best to help kind of expand on, I guess, people's personhood, as dramatic as that sounds, because, again, as I've complained a bunch of times, it's been a problem where people seem to only want to talk about a very particular thing. Transformation, yeah, sure, but sometimes it's only the particular kind that they like, and it's good that people are given more wiggle room with that sort of thing. So that way, you never know what could come up, because somebody could say, oh, I was at this group, but it's because of this. And yeah, then you get to actually meet people more for who they are, and not so much about the shared interests. So it's a good structure. And if you ever get the chance to go to one of these, or be in, if you ever happen to be at the conventions, make some time, check it out for a few minutes, see if it's something you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm really glad to hear that. And,
yeah.
I would also say that one of the reasons why I bring it up also is because, between Fore and I, we mentioned 4 very large conventions, but obviously there are like hundreds of furry conventions every year. And, I sometimes worry about people's ability to get to have that kind of experience, because sometimes, and I'm not shaming FWA in any way, but FWA is coming up very shortly, and there isn't a meet and greet there because nobody submitted one. I didn't realize I was going to be able to come until fairly late, so I completely missed the window for submitting. So that's neither here nor there, but I was really hoping that there would be kind of like transformation content, and there's really only one panel for the 3rd largest furry convention. So, I talk about this in part also because I worry about having those experiences for other people who are coming into the fandom new, because again, Fore and I are like just 2 people, and I really want to encourage people to not even necessarily do our event at your convention, but more like consider running things where you then give other people the opportunity to chat, because I know that Fore and I, we kind of saw an opportunity to do something like this, but we're not the end all and be all. And I think the most important thing for the transformation community at a number of these conventions is even just having those spaces. And oftentimes we have to, it relies on like 1 or 2 people actually doing something so that all the people who are interested can actually, have that sort of opportunity.
I think it's good to also let people know about, would be to remember how it sort of got kicked off, which was just a few people deciding to meet because they're also into it. So you don't have to organize a thing or set aside or set aside space for it that's like formally done. Be like, hey, fans can meet me at whatever little space that people can just wander into. I mean, That's generally a good way to meet people. But if you make like just a little effort, like, I don't know, post something on your social or something like that, that also can do the thing.
Oh yeah, I think the
yeah, I agree.
Oh
no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I definitely agree, and I think that that was how a lot of transformation stuff at furry conventions even started. Like a lot of it was specific artists going and advertising that they were going to be there, and then people meeting up in the zoo or whatever seating area there was. I know that something we'll get to in a little bit started in that way at a convention, and I think that that's relevant too. But I definitely just want to emphasize that community building is on all of us to some degree, and I just hope that at some of these other conventions people might feel bold enough to put something forward like in the schedule, just because I say this because I think there's a lot of people who come to conventions maybe their first or second time, who don't have a big connection to other people within the community, and they'll only see what's going to be on like the official schedule, and that sometimes is a really valuable way to draw people in, but that means that someone else has to put themselves out there to actually get that on the schedule.
But you also have to attend them. You also have to attend them. If you don't show your interest by actually being there, it ain't going to mean a damn thing.
Yeah,
exactly. No, I agree. And to kind of like dovetail off of that a little bit, and like I don't want to go into horror stories from conventions too far, but I think that when it gets to like TF content at conventions, there's definitely kind of a distinction that needs to be made between what's a meet and greet versus what's a panel. I've seen some cases where some folks have tried like a hybrid where it's like there was a presentation where they started off with, this is what TF is, and then they moved into a panel, but then that kind of had a conflict because for folks that know what TF is and loved it, they just wanted, it was a panel, then a meet and greet. They didn't really want to go through the panel, they wanted to the meet and greet portion. And then there's also like the challenge where if you kind of go with a hybrid format or whatnot, or if you started off as a meet and greet, that focus really should be the meet and greet. Sometimes I've heard where folks are just like, they've gone to a meet and greet and here's a whole bunch of conversations that are happening, but then it might end up being monopolized by one person with a very strong personality who's just like, and kind of like what Libra was saying, here's my favorite kinds of TF, and they might moderate the conversation to the types of TF that they like and they like alone, which then ends up with some people feeling like they're left out, or that they're not welcome, or they're unable to make a connection with other people. So I would really encourage, just like what we've been saying, definitely get out there, definitely submit things, definitely attend, because the more you attend, the more likely these are going to be accepted at conventions. But also kind of like get the priorities right and think about what it is you're trying to do. If you're trying to educate, if you're trying to kind of like bring more people into the fold or something like that, that's
you got to know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah,
that's fine. I interrupted, but because yes, it's true. You can lose the scope of what you're doing if you make it too personal of a thing, or if you just don't think about it enough. It does need some kind of planning. Even if you do the the general thing of, hey, I'm going to be here at this place at this time, then just make sure that you know what the expectations are. You can set them a bit, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be drawing, I'm going to be drawing, but I'm also going to be talking to, but I'll talk to anybody, shit like that. You just let people know what's going on. That's part of the communication process too. Don't worry, if you feel really stilted or awkward, it'll be fine. Just a little bit of effort can go a very long way anyway. And besides, I've also been I've met so many people through these, and a lot of them are actually really, a lot of them can be very shy and a little awkward, but they also are there because they want to talk and they want to meet people. And that might be you too. It's a pretty level playing field, especially there. Hey, hammer it home even more. Low stakes. No, especially if nobody reads your name tag, nobody's going to remember you. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to add on to that, like even just showing up, even if you don't say anything, that's a net positive overall. You can listen to people talk about stuff and be like, wow, that's like me, and you don't even need to necessarily contribute, but so long as you're there, you'll get at least a sliver of the experience, and you can work your way up from there. And
right off what you said, Libra, one of the greatest things that I've seen for helping TF representation at cons, groups, whether it's Telegram or Discord, I've been noticing people that are just like, hey, I'm making a group for folks that love TF that are going to be at Con X. And folks have actually been creating those, and those have been great places, especially when people are like, okay, there's no official events at the con, but, I'm going to be drawing, or I'm going to be here, who wants to join me? The groups are a really great way to facilitate that.
No, I completely agree. And those Telegram groups, honestly, it's been really nice to see more and more of them crop up, because I think, especially at the start, I really only remembered the one for MFF. It felt like that was kind of the solo one, and now I've seen a bunch of them crop up for a whole variety of different conventions. So I'm really glad that that's been happening. And I'll also disclaim, this has very like North American centric. I know that they do a lot of TF stuff out at Eurofurence, for example. And I can't comment on how they do it there, but from what I've heard, they seem to have their own kind of format working for them. And so if you're based out of there, I would encourage you to check out the stuff there too, because, obviously, I think for a lot of people, especially those who don't live in North America, like it can be difficult to comprehend how this stuff is supposed to happen when, you have to travel often much further just to get to one. But it's always worth it to dip your toe into things, I think.
I'm curious about that format of theirs. Like, is there anything that we could use to develop?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so this is fully, I'm just going off of what I heard from Hukang, who I know did one at Eurofurence recently, or like last year, whenever it was. But it was funny. Our podcast got a shout out at it, which I appreciated. And he did kind of like a panel meet and greet kind of hybrid from my understanding. But it was very much like, okay, this is the panel, it's going to be X long, and then this is going to be the actual meet and greet. And it's more for people to kind of mill around and chat. So it sounded like it worked. Honestly, the European conventions work quite differently, I think, from a lot of the North American ones, which I think has its own benefits and drawbacks. But at least in terms of kind of the reception that I know he got, it seemed pretty positive. So I would love to go at some point. It's just, again, distance. It's across the ocean, and I understand the perils of coming to North America at this moment too. So like, I get it. So, but yeah, no, I think a lot of the community building through the meet and greets has been really heartening to see. And I know that there's kind of another initiative that you've kind of been tangentially involved with that I'd like to hear a little bit more about too, because I think that also kind of came out of people sitting at a table at a convention and then birthing kind of its own sort of community thing. So I guess I'd love to hear a little bit as to how kind of the TF Art Jam stuff happened, because I believe it happens now every Sunday on kind of a weekly basis, and it's an opportunity for artists to come together and create, and also for people to come together and watch other people create if they don't have something they directly want to contribute. But ever since, like, I think it started, it's had a pretty consistent sort of attendance. And I know I'm in like the Telegram group chat, even though I don't join because my Sundays are kind of crazy. But I'd love to hear more as to kind of how that sort of initiative started and, what your experience with it has been.
It's funny that you mention that because, like, I've got it minimized since we're recording, but, like, I just pull it up. Yeah, there's 9 people streaming right now on the TFR channel. I was a lot less involved with the start of it as I was with the meet and greet format. Obviously, I also made a mistake. I shout out to Zoe. She did help us out that first year that we did the meet and greet at MFF 2018. 2019. Well, the TFR Jam kind of like started up where it was just a bunch of us that were at the meet and greet. I actually don't even know how I first met these friends. I think I got pranked where people were just like, I was in a line and it's like, Zids is here, and like I was supposed to chat with Zids, and there was a whole bunch of people pretending to be Zids so he wouldn't get mobbed by people. And so
really
it was like, I was really confused. I was just like, I thought Zids was a black guy, and it's just like, yeah, he is. But anyways, it was just really weird. Like, I already knew this bundle of folks before, but after that prank, I got to know them a lot better. And I think it just became a thing where it was just like, okay, you know what? We need to do we need to do a TF art jam, because it would be an opportunity for us to all kind of like get together, see if there's artists that are attending MFF that would like to join together physically at MFF and just basically have a couple of hours of drawing. So basically the same sketchbook idea where it's just like folks are gathering and, you know, maybe doing drawings, trading sketchbooks and whatever. We're like, why don't we just make that into a panel? And I can't remember the year that it had happened, but because pre-Panini, everything just starts
together,
getting yeah, it all just kind of like blurs. But yeah, like it was basically that whole drawing format. And so I can't remember the con again, but
I think it was MFF.
Thinking that it might have. Yeah, it was MFF, but I'm trying to remember.
It was
the
2019.
year.
I remember these things.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so like that year in 2019, we just did it and we went for it. We had a great turnout. Like folks came in and it was really fun. And the thing was, coincidentally, it did end up happening on Sunday. So the con was kind of like getting closer to the end, and we were a little bit worried, you know, are we going to have enough people pop up? And so the two people that kind of like headlined it were my friend Kai Evan and the artist Kitsune Dark. They were both like the folks that kind of like took over, did the whole thing, and I just kind of supported wherever. And so we just had like this room, bunch of tables, people were drawing.
Yeah.
It was a fun time. And after that, like after we'd all gone home, a lot of us that were there and participated were just like, why don't we maybe turn this into a weekly thing where we actually have it happen on Sundays, and let's do it on Picarto. And so it kind of like just started off with this small group of friends that had kind of met at MFF. Well, some of them knew each other before that, but you know what I mean. So yeah, so it was like, you know, it was Kitsune Dark just kind of like doing drawings. Kai Evan, they're really good writers, so they do a lot of writing. We had Blind Man 12, a whole bunch of folks that kind of just coalesced and started doing this. And then over the course of the years, we've had newer people in the community just kind of like hop up, join in on the streams, and then they would ask, you know, like, hey, I draw, or I'm learning how to draw, can I join? And we're just like, heck yeah. And so even though we call it this Sunday TF Art Jam, we have everything from people that are doing drawings, we have people that are doing writing. I do not draw nor write, so sometimes I'm just, you know, doing music production, and sometimes I'll just stream. It was just like a really great opportunity for everybody to just be somewhere that's full of supportive people and just get stuff done. That's really the goal of the Art Jam.
Hell yeah. No, I think that's really kind of fascinating, honestly. And, you know, I think the fact that it has then kind of built up into something that people can feel like they can attend, you know, potentially just as a viewer, and then kind of be encouraged into creating is really important, because I think a lot of folks, when they join, you know, like an artist is streaming or whatever, they're there because they want to have a conversation, they want to watch someone else make art. That's great. 11 out of 10, we love this. But it's rare for me to hear about kind of a place in which people will kind of join and then potentially will transition from I am someone who's just watching to I am someone who's going to actively create during this time frame as well. And I think that sort of experience is something that's really necessary within a community, because you know, when we've kind of talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, I know Libra and I have, in terms of like, you know, when people say, oh, I can't do art, it's like, you should still try. Or like, you know, the common one is, I can't do art, so I write. And it's like, okay, it's great that you're writing. Are you doing it well? Are you working to improve on that? Or is this just something that you're using as a substitute for what you really want to do? And if that's what you really want to do, why don't you try and take a stab at that? And so it can be difficult, I think, to find spaces in which people are encouraged to push those boundaries, even if they are perhaps a little bit reticent or unsure of themselves or anything like that. And I think it's really nice as well that the way in which it's kind of set up, at least again from my understanding, is that, you can have people at all different levels of skill or quality or what have you, and everyone is encouraged to join in. Which, yeah, sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. It's been kind of like similar to the meet and greets. It is a great experience to have folks that, like you say, hop in. They might be a little bit scared to kind of show the process of creation on streams, but then they actually have, like, not only do they have an audience that they might not have gotten on their own because they're like new in terms of their content creation, but then you've got a whole bunch of people who are willing to give you feedback. So sometimes on stream they're just like, hey, how do you feel about this? And people will pipe up and say, you can probably do the leg a little bit differently. Just last week there was an artist that was doing some work, and one artist was just like, hey, take a look at my stream. This might help you out with the anatomy that you're trying to pull off. So then kind of like drawing it. And so it becomes very supportive in that way. So it's just, I just love seeing it.
Community is supposed to work. And that's also why learning art by yourself is really hard. And I also wish I knew that sooner and applied that even sooner than that, because when you're stuck there inside your own head and all you have is comparisons and stuff to look at, it's not really as productive as some people would imagine. There's a lot more to say about it, but it would change the subject.
Well, I mean, hey, we always love tangents. What did you want to kind of get into there?
Just that making what you want is really difficult for so many reasons, and there aren't a lot of clear things to look out for. A lot of the things that people end up learning is like part luck and I think it's a lot of luck, because it depends on who you're surrounded by, what you have at your disposal, how much time you have on your hands. So you're probably not going to feel as capable or have the same access. Or maybe you will, or maybe you'll be completely comfortable with yourself, or something like that. It's a big grab bag of things. So when you have people who want to draw stuff like this, it's extra intimidating for a lot of reasons, because one, there's a lot of artists that get put on pedestals, and ones that are like practically deified. They're above whatever, they fulfill these fantasies so deeply sometimes for people, and more. It's like such a range of things, but then that kind of makes what others do like kind of magical, which sounds nice, but if it's something that you want to be a part of, that you care about, it can be daunting, and it can feel like it can be like the kind of thing that you feel like you have it, or either you have it or you don't, which isn't true. And like, if it's not that, then it's the realization of having to learn things. It's like, I have to learn anatomy, which is a very scary word to some people, I think, and also it's something that people get really hung up on. And I know that it's weird to say that I think people get hung up on anatomy, but it's just, there's a lot of things that go into this stuff, and when you lay out everything that you would need to know to be great at it, whatever you think your standard of grade is, then you might not want to try it, because typically you'd have like a human or humanoid or something else. You'd have to learn how to deconstruct things so that you can have them turn into something else and look like it and everything. It's just that whole thing. It's great for this kind of niche to have a more community-centric approach, because a lot of people could be really intimidated by it. There have been some seasoned artists who I've spoken to who would look at the concept of what I've been doing for a while, and they're like, oh man, that seems really hard. So yes, it's better if you got people around that are willing to take a little bit of time to help people along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that again, like that sort of live feedback on things like anatomy is so helpful. I know that, one thing that I've definitely done with, a lot of my own art pieces is run it by other artists before I'm posting it, because I'm like, I don't know about this, or do you think anything looks off? And having the ability to have that kind of live feedback as you're making it is incredibly helpful and saves you time, to be frank.
Yes.
But also, sorry, go ahead.
No, it does. I'm just saying it does help you, because anybody can get hung up on a mistake for a really long time and then just kind of be discouraged from working. I'm just going to say also, during this whole creativity thing, like the other day, James Lee Animation, that YouTube channel, came out with a video that's just about, his creative process. And it's pretty succinct and it's brilliant. And if you're interested in making art or you're already making it, watch it. Doesn't matter what skill level you're at, you should see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll link it to you after.
I guess to turn it a little bit back to you, for have you at all found yourself kind of challenged or encouraged to try any of the other kind of modes of creation of TF art? Because I know obviously that your focus is more from like a music perspective, and you open by saying, I don't draw, I don't write, but I was curious if you've ever felt any sort of like inklings towards potentially trying it out as a result of any stuff at the TF Art Jam.
It's a good question, because I want to do it. I've always been kind of like curious to kind of like sit down and be like, okay, could I potentially draw? Could I potentially write stories? Like when I was younger, I wrote TF stories, like grade 9 high school. Oh my God. I found those files again. I've got like really old passwords on them that I can't remember. They're like Microsoft Word files on my drive. And I look at them and I'm like, I could have probably kept going. This could have been an opportunity for me. So, I guess, that is a long way to say that, yes, absolutely, having been part of the TF Art Jam, seeing people grow, people kind of, broach new interests and, exploring TF, reality, all these kinds of things. Yeah, I do want to put some pencil to paper and give it a shot. Absolutely. Whether it's drawing or writing, I don't know which one I would do first. I feel like, the writing would, I don't want to say it's easier, but at least having had a little bit of experience with it, I feel like I'm more likely to feel happier with what I put up with writing. It really doesn't matter.
You're really going to have to do the thing either way. If you really want to draw or do something like that, I'm very serious. Just, hit me up if you want to just do something. And not think as much about, it has to be perfect, or how much farther you have to go before you're good, in quotations.
I appreciate that. You might find me taking you up on that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I did also want to get into one other thing, and this is, I guess, kind of separate from community building, but definitely related to the community. Because I think, of course, you have had a lot of experience in terms of commissioning artists and, getting some fantastic art pieces. And one thing that I think we've kind of talked about this on the show before, but, I think there is something to be said about a lack of diversity in terms of TF subjects within the community. And I know that you yourself have obviously stood out as being one of those people who, you're getting TFs of yourself, so you're, of course, being reflected in that. And so I was curious to hear a little bit more about kind of your experiences with sort of commissioning art and interacting with the community as a Black person yourself, because I feel like there is a lot of stuff that still runs in the undercurrent. I mean, we've already, on another episode, we talked about the race change TFs, which, buddy, I don't want to get into that again, but I mean, broadly speaking as well. I feel like you probably have a lot of interesting insights on that area.
No, absolutely fair. I guess to say, It has been an experience being a serial commissioner in TF, because here I am having commissioned so much stuff for so many years, and the subject of those TFs has always been essentially a Black male that's supposed to be some sort of representation of me. And I found it interesting once, I would say a lot of stuff that I commissioned was before I started going to cons. And when I eventually went to a con, it was fascinating to meet people that I maybe talked to once in a while online or had never seen me in person. And I remember just this one conversation with somebody. I think it was, again, 2018.
Yeah.
That spate of cons I went to. It's like, I went to FC and I was just like, oh my God, I love this. And I then just went to everything else afterwards. So that year was just way too many cons to count. But like, this one person was just like, oh my God. I should preface what this was saying. This was not in person. We'd hung out at the convention. And when everybody had gone home, I guess that's the time when you reveal your inner thoughts or your deep, dark secrets. Oh my God, I didn't realize you were actually black. And it's just like,
thanks, dude.
Basically, like, what did you expect? And it's interesting because, like, I do feel like in terms of TF subjects, there is not necessarily the largest amount of diversity. I don't know if it's if it's because folks aren't commissioning the art, like the people who are black or whatever other people of color. Maybe they're not commissioning art that represents themselves out of fear. Like maybe there's a socioeconomic thing there as well. You don't know what it could be in a community, but I also get confused with other black guys in the community as well. People are like, oh, like they think I'm Zitz. They think that I'm Lodos as well. And I've met them both. They're lovely people. I enjoy chatting with them. I do consider them friends. But it's just kind of hilarious how somebody will see a piece and they'll be like, your piece is great. And I'm like, that's not me. That's one of the other guys. Thanks, though.
Those don't read. They really, really don't.
But they don't. And I guess like that's a lot of words to say that it has been a genuinely interesting experience to kind of navigate that. And like obviously I will still keep commissioning that art. But I do sometimes wish that people would be like, take a second and like maybe realize that we don't look all the same.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way of putting it. And, I think to kind of that point as well, it's frustrating that people don't read and make assumptions. But also, I think one thing that we kind of speculated on one time when we were talking about this kind of representation stuff before was that, a lot of artists, maybe they are just, putting themselves in their art or what have you. But that is kind of a flattening of the issue too, because there are a lot of talented black artists within this community, within the furry fandom generally. I don't know, sometimes I feel like in comparison to furry art, and I know this is kind of wild to say, but bear with me, I feel like there's somehow even less representation sometimes within TF spaces than there is in like other spaces. And it doesn't feel great from like just a general kind of representation perspective. And I agree with you. I definitely think there's probably like socioeconomic barriers and such, but I also wonder and worry how much of it is also because like putting yourself out there as someone who is a visible person of color is kind of, it doesn't often go well, I feel like sometimes. I don't know. Especially in the past, I feel like there is maybe perhaps a bit more of that, and I think people are at least trying to get better about it now, despite their slip-ups, but I still feel like there is sometimes a bit of an atmosphere around how that then gets perceived. And I could speculate more on that, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I mean, like, it's a good point. I have talked to some folks who are people of color that have been like a little bit shy about getting themselves commissioned for a number of different reasons. Like, they'll be like, well, I don't know if the artist will be able to do, like my skin color or features any justice. And that's actually something that my friend Zoe and I have spoken about at length about, obviously when we're talking about hyper-realistic art, the color palettes are a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but you can kind of look at that painting, and then you can kind of like replicate those skin tones in that painting relatively well. But then if you're starting to move into something that's going into more, and again, I'm not an artist, I don't always have the terms for it, but, you know, like, I don't want to say cartoony, but like if you're going more towards the, away from hyperrealism, to, you know, like flatter colors, or you're kind of going for something that's more idealistic, then it can kind of be a little bit harder to try and figure out, well, what are the skin tones that I should be using? And so then for like some of the indigenous folks I know, it's just like, well, great, I either look really white, or, oh, I now have this skin color. And I don't want to speak for other folks, I'm just saying what I've been told, that, you know, okay, the skin tone that was chosen for me is, it looks like puke. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And I've also kind of like encountered that as well, where I'm just like, okay, you know, if we're going for something kind of cartoony, here's the swatch that will help you out.
Damn, man.
And,
you know, I can't, that's really damning when you just, it shows that their skill set is incredibly narrow. Doesn't matter how good most of their stuff looks, but if suddenly they get really confused and just completely overlook how to represent something like that in their style, it means that they've grown complacent or haven't been able to think or something like that. That's a fucking problem. You can discuss the sociological shit all you want. It also says something about their skills as an artist and their ability to observe. That shit is pretty telling.
Yeah. And this is a broader problem, obviously, in art in general. I mean, this just comes to mind, so I don't apologize for them catching a stray, but you look at like games like Genshin, for example, where they introduce characters of colors, and it's like, okay, so you just turned the like opacity on white down by like 20% and called that a black character or an indigenous character, and it's like, come on, guys, like, what are we doing here? And I think to the point about the coloration, you know, it's frustrating because there are so many resources online that talk about exactly these issues. And they're like, so you don't want to make someone look like washed out, like choose these warmer colors versus these cooler colors. And when can you use them there? And to Libra's point, it's almost like a laziness of, you know, I'm just going to feel it out and I'm not going to do any research. If that is something that, you know, an artist is working through, maybe that's understandable, but you should be working through it, right? I mean, I think that is, like Libra said, I think it's kind of damning of the artists themselves, and, you know, it shouldn't be on the commissioner to be like, so here's these resources for how to draw me, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. I don't know.
Okay, I gotta ask you, how often did you have to hand people the swatch?
Oh dear. I don't have
no,
a full
you can just say a little, too, like a shameful amount of times, like, you know, whatever the fuck you want to say it.
I'd say maybe about 8 to 10 times. So like it gets complicated because, you know, like I usually don't want to be the kind of person who's just like, you know, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. And the thing is, like, I've had some artists that have been genuinely very happy to be commissioned to draw a person of color. It's just like, this is my first time, and they go step by step trying to be like, you know, am I doing great? And they try to do a lot of research on their own. Like, one of the things that I find that a lot of people miss is that for Black folks, while, yes, the majority of the skin color is one tone, the palms of the hands and soles of the feet are a lighter color. So some folks will actually catch on to that on their own, and I'm like, holy cow, they caught a detail that most people haven't. So I've had some like really positive ones, but then there's been cases where I've just been like, okay, well, you know, you've gone for really straight hair here, which is, you know, like, there are Black folks with straight hair. Yes, absolutely. But not all of us. But I have been sometimes a little bit shy, getting back to your question, Libra, about saying, you know, like, hey, could you do this? Could you do that? So I'm ashamed to say it, but sometimes I've just kind of let it go by, as opposed to giving a swatch, because I'll be like, it's close enough. They tried. I can get into the frame of this is me. But and sometimes I actually won't even notice it until like I go to a different computer and I'm like, that's green brown.
Green brown. Again, I worry about the fucking the aptitude of these people to do the fucking thing, especially for money. Look, I'm gonna tell you, all right. I complain about how some people color Kaska from Berserk. Yes, this is your Berserk reference. Kaska is...
Check off your bingo card.
Kaska is pretty dark. I don't know if she was meant to be black, but she's definitely not just some white chick. And there's some some art of her that she's just so fucking... Why? Why do you people do that sometimes? Even I think it was in the 2016 anime. She was suspiciously washed out, and I didn't like that, and that's fucking weird, because it was absolutely no question, no surprise, not ambiguous or just kind of like, is she? No, she's not supposed to be white or white passing or anything like that at all. So if I get upset at that, you can take some issue and be like, hey, I showed you my face or something, right? I don't know. Fuck.
Oh my god. Oh wow. Zill just shared. Yeah, that's That just some
choices were made.
Applied.
God.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, that all being said, and I don't want to pivot too much, I do want to, like, definitely give a shout out for, there are a lot of artists, like some of the ones that I've mentioned that have been trying. They've been trying their best, and I do appreciate that in more recent years, that a lot of people within the TF and the broader furry communities have been making efforts to kind of code their characters. And I love seeing that, right? So like when I'm seeing folks that are like adding black coding to their personas, elements of their ancestry, whatever culture that they have, that is just super cool. And I have one friend that has just been like very supportive of that. And so like sometimes he will gift me little art pieces, but then he will like add little bits of black coding to it, because I've spoken with him explicitly about wanting to explore that a little bit more. And it's been actually kind of nice to do that and to see that. And so in a way it's helped me to feel seen a little bit more. So I definitely think that overall that there is an effort that's being made. It could be just a little bit more on the part of some.
How about you explain to people what you mean by black coding? That will not register with what with the whole audience.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess like going back to like. Do I start with a definition of coding? No, that's too far
tell us what you mean. So, no need to break it down. When you say black coding with the art, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so like in general, so like I guess like one of the best ways and the easiest ways to kind of like explain it for folks. So let's say you have a Sona, and people often will explore different hairstyles with their Sona, or they might try to have their hairstyle of their Sona reflect their hairstyle in person. So for a lot of black folks, it is, I don't want to say stereotype, but it is a fact of life for many black folks that hair tends to be black and have very tight curls. And so when you go for, and I should also mention for a lot of black people, hair is just such a big part of culture. And it's something that transcends whether you're a Caribbean black, like my parents are from the Caribbean, or like if you're, African or whatnot, hair is just such a big thing. And so having sonas where you're kind of exploring black hair as part of that sona is a way of coding that sona. Sometimes it can be as simple as wearing clothing or colors that are kind of a big deal for your culture, your ancestry, or whatnot. And it's not just something that's explicitly for black folks. I've been noticing other people from other cultures, ethnicities, and races exploring that by bringing those elements into their sonas and kind of reflecting themselves. And that's just really cool to see.
I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can just shoot it back with some different words just in case. In terms of coding, you mean elements that are telling of, some kind of cultural background without it just saying, "Oh, this character is whatever." Okay.
Yeah. No, that's really well put. Yeah. No,
okay,
you got
cool.
it.
And I really hope that we get to see a little bit more of that as the community continues to grow, because I agree. I definitely have seen a lot of that more now in the furry community, and I just hope that translation continues into ours, because I think that there's a lot to share there, and this goes for all kind of cultures and such. And again, I think this community is something that is at the end of the day global. There are people who are into transformation from all over the world, and I think that oftentimes the impression that is given online is very much not that. And I just hope that folks can continue to find ways to express themselves and represent themselves in an authentic way to help both them and others like them recognize that they are very much a welcome part of the community. And I hope that the artists who did need to be told to get swatches have continued to build on their styles since then, because we love improvement and self-development here. So awesome. Well, I did want to make sure I left some time for our audience questions. And so this is going to be a very hard shift from what we were just talking about. But the first question, it always is, honestly. The first question we have is from Other Side. And the question is, did you have a childhood crush over a fictional character? And if so, what character was it?
Oh my God, Felicia and Ryoko. Yeah.
Oh.
I was really into them for a while, and I still really like Felicia, and I still really like Ryoko, and both of them I look at as real big signs of the kind of women that I'm into. Because they're both strong, dangerous. They're very different personalities, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, they both they both also have some kind of monstery qualities, coincidentally, because of how many different versions of Tenchi there are, where in one version she does temporarily change into some kind of beastly muscle form. It's actually a good transformation too. One of the ones that can just pass over because it's just not known. But yeah, that was for me, Ryoko and Felicia. And to, I guess I would say lesser, only because she came along later, I still really have a thing for Tifa. But yeah, in terms of really young formative me, yeah, it was them too.
I have been thinking and trying to remember, and I am coming up blank. It's a tough one because I was exposed on so many of us to so many different characters. I feel like there's probably one that I'm going to remember when we finish recording, and I'll be like, it was that one, and I didn't say it. But right now, still blank.
That is totally fair. I feel like this was a softball question, at least on my part, because so many of the characters that I loved growing up have become part of the kinds of transformations I commission. Ratchet, check Lombax's off of your bingo card, I guess. That was always a big one for me, and continues to be. I'll mention Sly Cooper and Spyro as well. I think I really grew to love those characters. And then I actually didn't really know much about Rocket until the first Guardians movie came out. So that was actually a much later one for me. And I regret not discovering him sooner. But yeah, I'd say those are probably the ones that definitely stand out, at least in my mind, as ones that I was like, I feel weird. I don't know what to do about this. So, you know. We have another question that is quite interesting from Max Velocity. And so Max asks, if you could pick any one artist from before 1920 to commission TF art from, who would you pick and what would you want commissioned? So, for example, a pool toy TF from Goya, or Feral from Katsuhiro, or TGTF from Michelangelo. Any what come to mind? Anyone?
What the fuck, dude? Yeah,
it's a good question.
TFTG from Michelangelo. You know, he was more of a sculptor, right? Which I think is really funny if you want that sculpted out in a sequence. Mm-hmm. It would also probably never be completed. Enjoy knowing that.
But do you have an answer to the question, Libra?
I guess, like, I would probably... I don't have, like, a big fucking idea of, like, a lofty artist. I think I would want to, like, get something from Ranzab. Ranzab was also somebody whose art was really influential on what I wanted to do and what I like. And so, like, some of the stuff that I really like from him, I still really like. So I'd want to, like, get something from him, or a trade. I don't know, whatever. It would just be cool. Rounds up, if you're out there, you can talk to me sometime. Maybe I don't fucking know if you're paying attention. Yeah.
But I think it has to be somebody before 1920, unless there's an artist from before 1920.
Fucking 1920. I guess I'm not really paying attention to like many names in particular.
Sorry.
I don't know. Get me some Baroque painters. Maybe I'm also, like, already aware of some painters that I really like, that I would just think, oh yeah, you know, that would be amazing. But that's why I was thinking, like, so that's why I think small. I guess I don't look at artists in that period and think, yes, this is my dream painting or piece from you. Like, you've already done it. You've already laid the groundwork to influence my stuff. Yeah. So that's why I can't really think of something. If people want to see, like, their fantasies fulfilled by these people, I say, I guess, do it your damn self, or find somebody who's close to it.
So I actually have an answer to this, because I was thinking about it as we were chatting. So I would want to commission Rembrandt, but specifically kind of the mid-period Rembrandt and not some of his later, super late stuff, because he got a little dark and moody, which fair, honestly. But because he did really interesting portrait work. That was one of the big things that he did and was well known for and such. And so I think I would want to commission him to do some sort of, like, almost a kangaroo transformation, but specifically focused on like the facial features and, like, kind of like the kind of the chest up sort of approach. Because I think that he would do some really interesting and semi-realistic kind of takes on it. And I really like his art style. And then if I had to give a secondary, like, honorable mention, I would definitely commission Vermeer to do Pool Toy TF. That would be my backup.
Good choices. I think I'd actually be pretty similar to you. When you gave the question, the first thing that came to mind, it's going to be a little obscure, but I feel that some people will know it. There's an old painting of this dude who's got a cane, and then he's, like, pointing at the viewer, and he's got, like, this laughing face on. It's
that guy.
Yeah, it's basically become a meme. And I remember kind of like sitting down, seeing that, and I'm like, okay, I want to know more about this. And apparently the guy who does it, his name is Joseph Ducre.
Yes.
I'm probably really messing up that French. I'm going to choose him for this question because he's really good at facial expressions. And the thing for him, and I think like a bunch of artists as well at that time, was they wanted to explore facial expressions in their art. And I think that when we're talking about a TF portrait, somebody like that would do a really solid job. So my answer to that question is, I am biased. I would actually totally go for a deer TF. Yeah. Not because my son has a deer, but yes. And it have to be a portrait, and it have to be an out there facial expression.
I don't know why you
for those.
I don't know why you would commission something that you'd actually want. That's weird.
for the record, by the way, the name of that painting is Self-Portrait of the Artist in the Guise of a Mocker, if anyone wants to look it up. It's really so good. I love that guy. And definitely encourage people to check out some of his other stuff because, yeah, his expressions are fantastic. The last question I have here is from Leafwine, and as always, Leafwine likes to give us very in-depth hypotheticals. So the hypothetical question we have here is: a suspiciously wealthy patron gives us the opportunity to create a weekly TV series. So, Libra and I would still be doing our TF Tuesday stuff, but every Thursday we would be reviewing our experiences as an anthro species each week. Now, the caveat here is the first episode would deal with an animal that we dislike. So the original question put forward just geese for me, basically. But basically, think of an animal that you wouldn't want to transform into. That would be the first one. And so the question is, would you suffer through it if you got to tackle some of your favorite animals in the subsequent episodes, and of course, with adequate monetary compensation?
Yes. Why not? If it's temporary.
Yes.
If you pathologically hate it that much, I actually think that it's a problem. Because if you would want to transform that much, but then say I have to temporarily be this thing that I really, really dislike just for a little while, no, then I think that's fucking weird. I really think that's weird.
But let me ask, what would be the animal you would dislike that you would have to endure?
I would dislike. I don't. Damn, I don't.
And it's anthro.
Anthro? You want to know? Okay. This is going to sound really funny. I do not like this. I do not dislike dogs at all. I love dogs. I do not like anthro dogs. I do not like furry dog characters. I don't.
Interesting.
There's something about them. And, actually, no, there's not something about them. It really has a lot to do with the fact that there's the implied or sometimes overt subservience that comes with being an anthro dog or a puppy this or whatever that. And I don't like that. So I definitely wouldn't enjoy being an anthro dog because I don't want people to treat me just like that. That would piss me off. So there you go. But yeah, for like a little while, just like, oh yeah, you're going to be an anthro dog. It's like, okay, fine. Make me a Rottweiler, and I'll deal with it for a little while. It's not going to be a huge thing, but if I have to, but that's the one thing that I think of that makes me be like, eh.
Yeah. How about you, Fore?
So yeah, my answer to that question is like, heck yeah. Like, problem is, I really like TF. I think I've gotten to the part of my TF career where, if you can call it a career,
I think we could.
I'm at the point of my TF career where it's like I'm interested in TF for the sake of TFing more so than the actual species. It's more about the experience. It's about the thought experiment. It's about all of those things more so. So my first species, because I know you're probably going to ask that, Zill, it would be spider. I'm not a fan of spiders at all. I do not know why. They're good for your environment. They're good for your house. They eat the things you don't want. but if I see a yellow sac, I'm going to look around my room just to double check. If I see a yellow sac spider, I have a visceral reaction. And yet, I really like spider TFs. So, yeah, that's my answer.
No, I think that makes sense. I feel like this question was just deliberately put here to put me in a hard position, because I have spoken at length about how much I dislike geese and would never want to become one. So this is perhaps slightly more difficult than it should be, but yes, I would endure that so that I could enjoy other ones in the future. I would grit my teeth because they have them, and I would endure an Anthro-Canadian geese transformation, and specifically Canadian geese. The other geese are fine. It's the Canadian geese that I cannot abide by, but I would put up with it for the sake of getting to other animals that I would enjoy far more. And it's deeply amusing because it's really the only animal that I can really think of that I'm like about, but you know, it also is funny. So
that's hilarious. I actually have a Canada Goose TF that I commissioned.
Yes.
I'll have to share it sometime to
I'm just like, oh God, no, anything but that. Because I remember, like, you know, with my ex-partner a number of years ago, I had obviously opened up to them about transformation, and they were like, okay, the question they posed to me was, you get the opportunity to transform, but it is only for Canada geese. And I was like, no, I wouldn't do it. And they were like, really? And I was like, nope, absolutely not. If that's the only one, then thank you very much. Have a nice day. I'll be fine. So.
But your superpower would be the entire anger of a nation.
I guess that's true. I would have that. That is somewhat tempting, but I would still be like, have a nice day, you know, like, please give this to someone else who will appreciate it for what it is, because that person is not me. So. Oh, man. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I know we've asked you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh gosh, I can't really think of any, because I mean, like, we've hung out enough times, like, in person, that basically almost any question that I could think of I've probably already asked. But at this moment, no. I just want to say though, like, I really do appreciate you guys do these podcasts, and you know, you spread the love of TF everywhere, and you kind of like reaffirm it for those of us in the community. So, like, seriously, really great on you guys for doing this, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a blast.
Absolutely, man. No, I'm really glad that you were down to come on, and I was obviously very excited to have you back. And you know, for folks who are interested to see more of your stuff and the wonderful things you've commissioned, where can they find you online?
Oh God, I have not been posting.
There's a great archive, at least.
I mean, like, if people want to, if people want to, if people want to see, like, stuff, I'm sure that if they go to FA and they type in ForePaws with a Z, because that's the way you're guaranteed to see the stuff that I've gotten. That'll be it. As for stuff like music and stuff, I've had friends that have been heavily encouraging me to start posting those to, like, Blue Sky and whatnot. But yeah, I'll get to it. I also do fursuit photography. That's easy to find. I was going to say,
your photography on Fur Track is excellent, and people should definitely go check that out. And as someone who has only started to do the fursuiting stuff, I cannot thank the people who post the photos to Fur Track enough, because there have been so many times I've been like, oh my God, someone took a picture of me and it's great. What? Hello? So anyways, I really appreciate that.
There's a lot of very talented photographers out there. It's crazy. It's so
really
cool.
Is. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this as much as we did recording it. If you are, in the spirit of what we were talking about before, if you are at Furry Weekend Atlanta, I will be there. I will be running around, not running things necessarily, although there will be a underground live recording of this podcast there, so maybe hit me up if you want to be there for it. But I'll be running around. Feel free to reach out and say hi if you see me, or if you see my fursuit Equinox, he'll be bouncing around a little bit. But in the meantime, I hope that you all have a wonderful week and that you stay hydrated, get better sleep than Libra and I, and stay TFy. And we'll see you back here again next week.
Yeah, don't forget to turn the lights off when you sleep. It has to be nice and dark so that your brain really gets that rest.
Yes.
Good wisdom.
Cheers.